Hello and welcome to episode 30 of the Kingfisher Knits podcast. My name is Madeleine and I'm talking to you from my home in Zurich, where I live. I'm originally from the UK, but I live here in Zurich with my husband and our 2 children, and there's one on the way, but I'm not going to stand up now. I've kind of got myself comfortable. Apologies today for the boring background again, although I never have an interesting background. I'm not one of those people with a beautiful yarn wall or particularly beautiful sitting room to have as a backdrop for my podcast, but that's fine. But this time around I'm catching the time I could. My hair is wet, I had a shower and I have a moment, so I decided to try and record, because otherwise, so much time has passed. Anyway, if you didn't know, this is a knitting podcast where I talk about my knitting and yarn, and I'm also a knitting designer of patterns, and I'm also a knitting pattern tech editor. Down below this video on YouTube, in the description box, you will find links of where to find me on Instagram and Ravelry. We have a Ravelry group, Kingfisher Knits. I am Kingfisher Knits on Instagram also. And I also put down below in the description box all of the show notes, so that is links and relevant information about what I talk about. It is September. I cannot believe it's already the end of September. We're having really quite warm weather at the moment here, which is really nice. It's still getting plenty of doses of sunshine. I am happy that knitting season is here. However, I'm maybe because I'm born at the end of the summer, I'm never happy for the summer to end. So anyway, it's nice that this autumn, at least the beginning of this autumn, is proving to be very sunny. I don't really have too much admin up front this time. What I did want to say is that we do have an ongoing knit along, which is the mixed base cowl, which I will link. I'm still kind of not back into that mindset at the moment, given what happened over the summer. That knit along is there. I love it. Mixing bases is something that I've very much enjoyed doing in my knitting. So by all means, go and check that out. And I feel that by the next time it's something I might talk about a bit more, and perhaps start setting some deadlines for that, which I'm thinking realistically is not going to be before the end of autumn anyway. And now that it's cooling off, although not much yet here, but that it is cooling off, a lot of people with these mixed bases, were using mixing mohair with other bases, and that wasn't very much fun to knit with in the summer, at least not for me. So that is the main thing I wanted to mention up front. Then I do have a few things to talk about. I thought I really didn't, because I have restarted knitting on a couple of design pieces, which again feels very strange, and I can't really share those. But I think I have enough to be getting on with, and I also have a review for you, and something which I'm really, really excited to share with you all. So I'm just going to jump in with whips, which is where I normally start. The first whip that I'm going to talk about is my socks. I am knitting a pair of socks out of Hedgehog Fibres yarn. These are my sort of, easy peasy stocking stitch knitting, which I'm doing while I'm, not wanting to have to concentrate too much. So Hedgehog Fibres do now have a new label. I haven't bought any yarn since they have their new label, but this is their old label, which was still around for quite a long time. This is the Twist Sock base, which is 80% blue face Leicester, 20% nylon. I think someone said that they've discontinued this base. I really like this base. I already have a pair of socks knit in this. This is the Seaspray colourway, this was a club colourway from more than a year ago now, and their club colourways they do not remake. So this is the yarn in the skein. This is one of the cakes of yarn which I have. It's showing up. It's a tiny bit more washed out to you. There's a little bit more brightness to that aqua that you can see there. but I'm knitting mine 2 at a time. I'm using my Chiagoo mini twist needles, 2.25 millimeters with the red lace, so the pointier tip. I really love the cable of this, and as you can see, so I'm knitting them cuff down, and I've done the heel. I did a short row heel with a sort of little mini heel flap and gusset there. Sorry, everything's reversed always. And I did it in garter stitch, nice and squishy. And I don't know, I'm at least halfway done on the foot, maybe a little bit more than halfway. So at some point, you know, I'm adding just a few rows of these at a time when I need to, out and about, or when I'm really tired and can't be bothered to work on anything else other than just going round and around. So not much to say about those, I've already spoken about them a couple of times. So I don't want to linger on that too long because ultimately they are a pair of vanilla socks. But I'm very glad to have them on the needles. So that is whip number 1. Whip number 2 is, yes, this one. Sorry, I'm just trying to remember what's in what bag. Whip number 2 is the Serafina top. I'm afraid the pattern is very much, you know, beaten up here. This is the Serafina top by Irina Anikeva or Irmian Design, as you can see down here. I don't want to get, if I get a bit less glare on it there. So you can see it's a lovely top with beautiful lace, sort of cabled lace paneling on the shoulder, and then a bit of texture on the body, but otherwise relatively simple, and using twisted rib for the cuff and the neckband and the hem. There's another couple of nice pictures there. There we go. So I am knitting, so she had knit, her sample is knit in Primo Sport, I believe, yeah, from the Plucky Knitter, which is 250 meters per 100 grams. So that's sort of, I would say, like, some people would call that light DK sport. And I picked up a base which was technically called DK but has exactly the same put up, 250 meters for 100 grams. This is from Sidi Spint, which is here in Switzerland. They are in Bern. It's a yarn store, and I think she sells her hand-dyed yarn, but also also stocks other yarns. And this is the merino cable, or I once had someone call it cablé, but I guess that's just a French for it. Yarn. That's just a term for the type of yarn that this is. So the way that it's plied, it's a very, very, very round yarn, which means it's very good for stitch definition and therefore cables. I think I looked at it carefully, and I think it's like 12 plies, all twisted around together, making this very, very round yarn. And I'm knitting it in 2 colours. I only have the cakes with me of the main colour that I'm using. This is called Stein, which just means stone in German. It's a beautiful light tonal grey. And then what I've done is I've used undyed yarn for the lace paneling on the shoulder. And I think what I'm going to do is also use the undyed yarn for the sleeve cuff, which is here at the end of the of this part. I'll show you a bit more in just a second. And also for the neckband, which will come from this bit here, will also be in the undyed yarn, but the bottom hem I'll do, provided I have enough yarn, I will do in the grey. I think that will tie it together nicely. So it's a bit of a mess because there's sort of stitches on hold here for the neckband, and I had a bit of a saga with this week. I'm also alternating skeins, and there were bits where, you know, you've put bits on hold and then reattached the yarn, and I hadn't yet woven in any ends. I think what I wanted to do was get it to a point where I've knit enough down from the underarm that I can put it on a longer cable, try it on, and if I'm happy with how everything's looking, then I will probably go ahead and weave in all the ends that I can from up here, from when this top part was started. But it's not on a super short cable, so hopefully I can show this off to you. I'm knitting it on 3.5mm high sharps, and here we go. So it's a bit bunched up here. But what we have are the two lace panels, which are saddles. Those will go down here on the top of the shoulder and form the sleeve. You can see that the back is higher than the front. It's looking a bit more so just because of the way I'm holding it, and it's stocking stitch, so it's rolling terribly. But there's also some front neck shaping, which isn't there on the back. And you can see this texture across, which I'm really, really loving. It's just a simple 2-row or 2-round. Now I'm working in around slip stitch pattern. I am alternating skeins. All of the skeins have tonality to them. This was hand-dyed yarn, and there's at least one skein which to me looked, more, I can't remember if it was lighter or darker. So anyway, I am alternating skeins. I have now got to the point where I have joined in the round, so all of the initial part was worked flat. I have now, if I show it from this side, I just don't want to bash my needles too much. I have now joined in the round, which you can see here. And you can see there's also decreases here because this is forming, it's a drop shoulder, but there is some shaping to form a bit of a sleeve, down into the body of the top or the t-shirt. So there's a little bit more of that still to go, and then it will just be straight down. I'm knitting the extra small size, which sounds ridiculous because I'm not an extra small person, but I think I've discussed before, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of positive ease. I also have, I don't have a tiny waist compared to my bust, but, and I don't have a huge bust. I think I'm fairly in proportion, but I find, maybe because I'm short or whatever, if I wear things with a lot of positive ease, I find I look very busty, and I look like I don't have any waist, and I don't find it suits me particularly. A bit of positive ease is fine. So this will have some positive ease, but the intended design is to have 8 to 10 inches of positive ease, which is totally acceptable for many, many people. And that would have meant that, if I had knit my size, I would have had all of those inches of positive ease, which I didn't want. If I knit the extra small, I just have a couple of inches of positive ease. So I just decided I was more happy with that. As I said, I'm going to try it on soon and check that I feel that it looks okay, and that I don't mind if there's some negative ease on the bust, and then just sort of, a little bit of positive ease in the rest. I looked at the schematic, and that's the size I went for. Now, the drama that I had was I was a bit of an idiot. So you start with the saddles, and then when you start to pick up stitches to work the rest of the garment, you are first knitting the back. Yeah, this is the back, with the bigger part of the neck as it appears, because the neck starts sooner, the back neck. And you knit down to just after the second repeat of this slip stitch pattern, and then you put it on hold. You can knit the front, and then when you get to the same point, you join in the round. I was really, really stupid, and I knit to 2 rows after the first slip stitch pattern, and I joined in the round. I posted about this on Instagram, but obviously that's a problem. So what I decided to do, it's not a ton of knitting. I could have ripped back, but I was happy with the knitting. Like if I have to rip back because I've knit something that I don't like, or that doesn't fit, I don't know, it's a different mentality to me. All I needed was more rows up here. I needed basically I needed 12 more rows and a slip stitch repeat. So what I did was I put in needles, I picked up stitches all the way across this row, above and below a row. I snipped that row in the middle, I undid it so that I separated basically from here to here. I had separated that into 2 pieces of knitting. I knit down the extra that I needed, so all of this, and then I grafted it together. And you can just see here, because the camera tends to pick up a lot of contrast, you can probably just see there's a slightly wibblier row here. I've tightened up all the stitches and I'm pretty happy with them, and I think that whatever is left there that you can just about make out will block out. So, I mean, there are parts of it where it's really, really perfect. There's no wibbliness at all. I was a bit nervous about doing it just because it was straight across the front of the garment, basically right on the top of the bust. Like, there isn't a more noticeable point. But I thought I'd give it a go, and if it didn't work, I just would have ripped, I would have ripped back. The back would have been where it was. I would have ripped all the way back to where I had tried to fix it on the front, and I would have done it. But anyway, I've done it, I'm happy with it, and now, yeah, it's straight down, in the round, mostly stocking stitch, with the, the occasional slip stitch band. Yeah, so this is also now at a point where it is relatively mindless knitting. Right now it's not super mindless because I'm still doing these decreases for the sort of mini sleeves, but that will also be finished soon. So I'm really happy with that. I'm loving this yarn. It's really lovely to work with. It's hardly, it's such a beautiful twist and ply on it. It's not splitting. Yeah, I'm just having a really good time with it. So I'm just going to put that away. And the final whip that I have is actually something I can't show you. It's one of the design projects I mentioned that I'm working on, but I can show you the yarn, and I'm happy to tell you that I'm working on a hat. I posted it when I cast it on Instagram, and you can see that it's on a 16-inch circular, which admittedly doesn't tell you anything. You could have thought it was the beginning of a neckband for a sweater, or a bottom-up sweater for a child, but it's not. It's for a hat. And the yarn is from the Wool Kitchen. It is her Blue Faced Leicester Aran weight base in the fantastic Champagne Supernova colourway. So I have already knit at least half of the project. I hand wound this ball. I'm not a fan of hand winding. I will never do it normally unless I have to, but it was one skein to wind up, and it's Aran weight, so it's pretty thick, and I thought, well, I'll just hand wind it instead of getting out the stuff and setting it all up. If I had other skeins to wind at the time, I wouldn't have done that. And it was really fun to wind with all these beautiful flecks of these lovely bright neon colours. And I'm really enjoying working with this yarn. And on my project, about half of it went perfectly to plan, and then I did something how I had thought basically I had an idea, and I was like going, this doesn't look as good as the first half of my idea, but I'll just keep going, And then I got all the way to almost finishing the hat, and I was just like, half of the hat was so much better than the second half, and I was like, no. Rip it back to the point where the second patterning thing that I was doing started, and do something different, and I have, and from what I'm seeing of that coming out so far, it definitely was the right choice. So I had an instinct and I went with it. Ultimately, it's just a hat. It wasn't much to rip out, and I'm really glad that I did. So that's everything that I have to show you for whips right now. I have a couple of FOs to show you, and then a little bit of acquisition and dream knitting. I also wanted to mention that I'm absolutely desperate to put out my Recoleta cardigan by Jorge Locatelli again. I just, there's still lace work to be done on that, although actually I looked at it, there's not that much left before it's, the bottom band still has lace, so that the bottom of the garment has lace all the way to the bottom on parts of it, and then the sleeves are just in stocking stitch, but there isn't that much to do because it's Aran weight. And I still wouldn't be able to wear it yet, but maybe because it's a cardigan and I've got my bump, and while I'm still wearing my hand knit sweaters, knitting's very forgiving, and I'm almost 5 months pregnant, so it's sort of fitting, but the bottom hem, doesn't reach all the way to where one would normally want it to reach on one's trousers, let's say. So it's okay, you can do those kind of things when you're pregnant and stick t-shirts underneath. But I'd really like to have a nice hand-knit cardigan that I could wear. I am wearing a hand-knit cardigan, actually. This is the Soubrette cardigan. This is a lace-weight cardigan, which is knit out of lovely yarn from Knitting in France. It is a Stellina yarn. You can just about see it there. Really, really love this cardigan. I wear it absolutely to death, so much, and it does pill this one a bit. But I just give it a glean now and then, and I still love it. It's not the kind of pilling which makes it look hideous, if that makes sense. Okay, FOs. I'm very sorry, but I actually put off podcasting like a couple of weeks ago so that I could block this. I then didn't block it and didn't record a podcast. So I thought it's ridiculous if I do something like that again or not show it. So this is my finished rune shawl. It will grow considerably. I mean, it's already got a decent wingspan, which isn't going to grow a ton because, you know, the edge is only so flexible, which I'm happy about. I like that you have a solid, you know, decently solid edge. It makes a shawl more stable in my opinion, but I know it's going to grow considerably down. It's already a decent size. So this is the Rune Shawl by Helen Stewart. This came in the second Shawl Society. Yes, it wasn't because I didn't have the first Shawl Society yet. This was a pattern in the second Shawl Society, and it's like an elongated triangle. It's an elongated triangular shawl, meaning that normally in a classic triangular shawl, it is as deep as it is half of its width, but this is wider than that. So it's a few more increases along the top edge. I knit this out of 2 beautiful merino cashmere nylon yarns. The darker yarn there is from Fondant Fibre. It was called Madeleine's Peacock, so it was a custom colourway. And it's absolutely gorgeous. And the second colour, which right now you don't see it so well in the eyelet rose, but I know once it's blocked, you know, you're going to see that. Oh, look at those colours. That's exactly what it looks like. Great. You're going to see that much better, but for now you can see it best on the border. And this was just called Soft Variegation. It's from Knitting in France. Both absolutely beautiful yarns. So the yeah, this was a merino cashmere nylon base, and I know that the merino cashmere nylon base of Fondant Fibre, who is Deb, and she is dying again, which is wonderful, is her Austin base. So I'm really looking forward now to getting this blocked and wearing it. And yeah, this was a simple project that I got on my needles when I realised at some point, excuse me for being out of breath, it's a pregnancy thing. Ugh. There's nothing I can do about it other than not talk, of course. But that would render the podcast a bit weird. Yeah, when I needed something simple, and it's mostly garter with a little bit of concentration because there is that patterning down the middle. Anyway, so that is FO number 1. And FO number 2 is not 100% finished, but it's finished enough for me, is a little cardigan. This is, and I meant to practice pronouncing this, the Puerperium, oh gosh, it's been folded as well, cardigan. It is a free pattern on Ravelry, at least in the newborn size. Then there is a Beyond Puerperium, yes, pattern which is paid for. It's from this, I'm afraid I'm struggling to remember the name right now, which is very bad, of the designer, and I never printed out the pattern. It's such a simple little pattern. I think I just had it on my phone. And but she's also the designer of the newborn vertebrae, and I will absolutely link the pattern down below so you'll be able to see. She has a lot of patterns. And so this is in a newborn size, and why I chose this, although I still think I might do a newborn vertebrae, that's a fingering weight pattern. This is a DK weight pattern, and my baby will be born at the beginning of February. That's the plan. That's when he's supposed to come. And I really like this in that it's, you know, it has the coverage of a sweater. It will close with buttons here, which is why I'm saying it's not totally finished yet, because I haven't sewn the buttons on. But it will be easy to put on, and I just think it's adorable. This is knit in a DK weight yarn from Mothie and the Squid. This was a skein which was very, very kindly gifted to me by Vicky Bird of Vicky Bird Designs. I don't know if this is a colourway that is still produced by Mothie and the Squid, but Mothie and the Squid are still dying. It was 100% merino DK weight. It's a superwash yarn, and the colourway was Ebb and Flow. I have put all the details on my Ravelry page, so how much yarn it used. It did use, I think, more than 80 grams, but maybe not quite 90. Most of this skein. And the colour's showing up a bit washed out here. I've really, really struggled. Like, that's more accurate there. I'm still not quite getting it. That's better. What I really like, I knew this was a colourway. You know, I wasn't gonna alternate the skein, so from the middle and the outside of the cake. I knew I was just gonna knit it as it was, and it was for a baby, and there was gonna be some kind of pooling. And in the end, what you've got is pooling, which creates what basically amounts to 2 row stripes with the flashing from the lighter colour, and I really like it. I think it looks super, super cute, and I love the little bit of garter. And what I've done, I don't really have a button stash, and it's not totally true, there is a yarn store not that far from me which has a decent selection of buttons, but I just haven't had the time recently, and so I pulled out some buttons from the minimal stash that I have, which I think I'm going to use, which are these little shell buttons. So let's try and show it off. Try and hold one, it's not very easy. You know, it's just a little shell button. It's gonna be noticeable, but without being eye-catching. And so I think that's gonna work. And I don't think I'm gonna hold back and go look for other buttons. It has been blocked. It looks like the ends haven't been woven, and they have been. I wove. Also, actually, in this shawl, the ends have all been woven in, although they're still dangling off, because what I do is I weave in my ends, then I block, and then I trim them after blocking. And these ones, I just evidently haven't trimmed them yet, but they are woven in. So, yeah, that is a beautiful little cardigan and first little thing finished for the little baby. Excuse me while I put that away. So, the only acquisition that I have to talk about is, what month are we? September, I already said that. The September knit crate that arrived. I also posted about it on my Instagram. I was really bowled over by this month's knit crate. I noticed it on their Instagram page before I even received it, and I knew I was going to love it, regardless of the colour I got. There were 4 colour options, because you don't get to choose. I'll talk a little about knit crate in a minute, but this is the yarn. If you know me, this is definitely my idea of gorgeous. The colour is wonderful. It's a pretty deep blue, but very tonal. So what you're seeing there is not shadows. While it's not giving you the colour perfectly, it is giving you the fact that there are lighter and darker parts to this yarn. It is very tonal, and even better. So this is 2 skeins of the Dream Base from Vidilana, which is one of KNITCRATE's yarn brands. It is 70% superwash merino, 20% silk and 10% cashmere in a sport weight base. So it's 300 meters for 100 grams. It's so beautiful. I even considered immediately going on their website and buying more skeins of this colorway so that I could knit a garment with it, like a cardigan, some kind of cardigan. I have held off. Maybe I'm going to regret that. I don't know. But it's still a lot of yarn. It would make a beautiful, wrap or shawl. So for those of you who don't know or haven't watched, KNITCRATE is a subscription service. They have various options. This is called the KNITCRATE membership, which is their sort of basic's the wrong word because this is by no means basic, but their sort of standard option. They also have what's called the artisan crate, which is yarns which are, all the yarns are hand dyed, but those are yarns which are hand dyed by indie yarn dyers rather than the KNITCRATE's in-house dyers. And often, so it's a little bit, that one costs a bit more, understandably so, they have to pay the indie yarn dyers. And then they also have the Sock Crate membership and the Sock Crate Artisan membership crate. And occasionally they also have special crates or, just special sort of one-offs, whereas all those 4 crates are available every month. It's a subscription service which you sign up for, and it costs $24.99 per month. That is in dollars. That's incredible value, and that includes shipping worldwide. And you get 2 patterns. And one thing that they've changed recently is that you now get the patterns in booklets. So you get, with the KNITCRATE membership, you get 1 crochet pattern and 1 knitwear pattern. I don't, of course, want to give away the pattern, but I can show the pattern itself, but I can show you what the knitting pattern was this month to go with this crate, which is a beautiful shawl with just some simple, relatively simple lace and stocking stitch in a lovely shape. bit asymmetrical. And the crochet pattern this month was this beautiful shawl. And so I think, and then you also get to see two of the other colours that were options. And the final option, so I got the blue. They have this beautiful olivey green and this lovely dappled purple, and the other one was a red. But this yarn is just to die for. So yeah, it's a subscription service. You don't always know, you don't know what you're going to get. Although what I do like about it is that, if you see the September crates coming out and you really like them, provided they're still available, you can still go within that month and still go and purchase that month's crate. So I have been really impressed with all of the yarn I've received from KNITCRATE, and this month just happens to be my personal absolute favourite. I will not be giving this yarn away, I'm sorry. But I do want to remind everybody that if they're interested in checking out KNITCRATE, you can check down the link down below this video in the description box. And I also wanted to remind you that we have a code. They've given us a code 20% off of your first month's membership price. The code is Kingfisher20, so that's all capital letters and then the numbers 2 and 0 all together. It's down below this video. It's down in the description box below. So if you do want to check them out, by all means do, and please don't forget to use that code. So that is everything solid, let's say. And the one other thing that I wanted to mention was a little bit of dream knitting, and it's both design work, which is nice to have that feeling again, although I also desperately have like a million garments that I want to cast on. But anyway, maybe it's not surprising that the first design project that I really went back onto was a hat, and this hat actually, it might come out as an individual pattern, I'm not going to commit, but I have a few pattern hat ideas which have a common theme, and so I was thinking of making a collection. So I pulled out a skein of yarn from the lovely Jane at Family Tree Yarns. She gave me a bunch of skeins earlier on in the year, and this is one of them. This is on her 100% superwash merino ethically sourced DK weight, 250 meters and 100 grams. But for being 250 meters and 100 grams, it's much, much plumper than the yarn I'm using for my Serafina top, which is meant to be, a sport weight base. It's absolutely gorgeous. This is her Silver Queen, or the Silver Queen colourway, and it's it's basically a tonal bluish, icy-ish grey, but it has a few specks of the colours in there, and I really, really like it. So I was thinking of doing, so I've got an Aran weight hat. I was thinking of doing a DK weight hat with this yarn, which is really gorgeous. And the reason that Jane has sent me yarn is that we had had an idea for a collaboration which involved doing a shawl pattern, and I just hadn't gotten around to it with everything that happened and not knitting. So I just wanted to pull them out again, and I think I might wind them up, because the idea for this shawl, which has admittedly changed a bit since, I don't know, 6 months ago when I first thought about it, is just still omnipresent. And this is using these 3 skeins of her yarn, which is also DK weight. This is instead, I think that she was trying out this other base. So this is this ethically sourced merino, and this is just her merino base that she already has in the shop. And this is on the colourway, the Pink Letter, the Silver Queen, and Grey Joy. And I just think they're going to be really, really beautiful together. I have to show you more of this skein because it's crazy beautiful. So a 3-colour DK weight shawl. I don't know when it will be cast on soon, but I do have an urge to cake them up so that I can make up a little swatch or just knit up a little bit of the colours, how I was thinking of using them, to check if that works in the way that I was thinking, or if I need to, go back to the drawing board. That is everything that I had to talk to you about this week in terms of my knitting and yarn that is currently making me very happy. I do have a review for you. I was thinking, what's the best way to do this? So what I'm going to try and do is make a video where I record my screen. So while I'm talking, you can see what I'm talking about. So the review that I have for you this week is the new ebook collection published by Irina Anikeva. She's the designer behind my Serafina top that I'm currently knitting, and I had the pleasure of being one of the proofreaders on this book. This is her first ever self-published book. She is a very talented and accomplished designer. I believe that she's based out of California. You may have seen her before. She's pretty popular, and she recently has worked with the likes of Brooklyn Tweed, and she's been published also in several magazines, and she has beautiful self-published patterns, and I really, really respect her as a designer. This is the front cover of the ebook, and where you can actually see probably my favourite design from the book, but I'm going to take you through each of the designs in the book. Thankfully, it is set up in a way that you have a showcase for the designs at the beginning of the book with photos, and the patterns are at the end, so I don't have to risk showing the patterns off to you or create too much editing for myself. So the photography in this book is absolutely stunning, and I love the theme. The first pattern that she has here is the Pelorus Hat. It's a beautiful cabled hat. You will notice that Irina uses cables an awful lot in her designs, and why shouldn't you? They're stunning, and she uses them to great effect. I'm not a big fan of yellow, but even, I don't know, this hat just looks so glorious in this golden yellow colour. I think, but of course this is by no means a super simple knit, but to me it does not, I mean, I've seen the pattern as well, it is not that complicated, and it creates just the most beautiful effect. Here are a couple of other shots, and one thing, I mean, Irina has amazing attention to detail that I've noticed throughout every design that I've looked at of hers. I've bought several of them, in fact, and you can see that the crown decreases here are beautiful and totally in keeping with the rest of the pattern. Then she has the Ropework Hat. I have a bit of a soft spot for this hat, and most of the hats in this book, to be honest, I feel could easily be done, could be used unisex. This one I feel in particularly in that way, and one of the reasons I love it is that it has cables also in the brim, so the cabling is continued. So if you see down here into what would be the rib of the brim, there's also a cable there, and I really like that. And this has an absolutely gorgeous crown. This is the cover pattern. This is the Lateen Shawl. It is worked in DK weight yarn, and I just think everything about it is perfect. I want exactly this one. The colours she's used are stunning. The lace is beautiful. You know, broken up with some garter, and knowing that it's in DK weight, I don't know, I just think it's a totally beautiful shawl, and isn't this just the most gorgeous photograph? I love this photograph here. So I'm very much in love with this shawl, and I have been since the moment I first laid eyes on this collection when it was sent to me to read through. This is the ladder cap. This probably, I would say, is more of a feminine pattern for the hat patterns in this book. And it's strange because I was one of those knitters who, when I first learnt to knit, wanted to get away from garter stitch as soon as I could. I thought it was ugly, and now I couldn't think that couldn't be further from the way I view garter stitch. I think it's beautiful, and most stitches have their place, and I just think garter stitch has been used absolutely beautifully in this hat. And she has the ladder shawl, which goes with it, which uses the same motifs, just, you know, placed on a shawl. And this shawl also looks very beautiful and incredibly wearable. It's a lovely one to wrap around yourself, and with the garter stitch you can just imagine how luscious it is. I'm not sure if she says here what weight it's worked in. I don't think she does, no. This is the Buoy Hat. It's another beautiful cabled hat, a bit more delicate perhaps than the other cabled hats that you've seen in this collection. And it's another beautiful one, which she doesn't have a picture of the crown for this one, but again it has beautiful crown shaping. and you know, so it has this all over beautiful weave pattern, which certainly for me recalls the sea. And then here, this is the only cowl in the collection. And I love that it's a lovely, great big, chunky one. It's something that I don't have. I've never made. Well, I have once made a beautiful, heavier weight, chunky cowl. I've made a couple actually, but I've given them all away, and I'm starting to think that I need one. And this one is very, very beautiful, and it's got, as you can probably tell here, beautiful twisted rib, and I'm a sucker for twisted rib. This is probably my favourite hat of all of the hats. It's the Windrose Hat. Something about this cable pattern I find really enticing, and again it has the feature that it has the cable stitches also in the brim, which, yeah, I can't explain why I love that, but I've always loved that as a feature. I just find it really, really interesting. And I mean, look at this one here. I don't know. It's just totally captivating to me. It has a stunning crown, and I really, really am tempted to cast this one on. Too many things. This is a glorious, great big hug of a wrap. This is the Turas Wrap, and it's beautifully, I find it to be both beautifully Celtic yet modern at the same time. I don't quite know how she's done it, but I find it quite captivating, the way that you have the cables, sort of, let's say, more classical cables in the middle, and then this interesting relief effect, which is still created by cables on the borders. I just really find it absolutely stunning, and also the way that you have this cabling running all the way along the edge. It also has tubular cast on and bind off, and it's going to ultimately look like an amazing, you know, shop bought designer piece, in my opinion. That is all of the patterns which are in this book. I hope that you have enjoyed the chance to have a flip through the ebook and hear about the patterns. I will put a link down below to where you can find the collection available. I know she also did have some of a print run of this, so people who are in California, I think she had her local yarn store stocking those. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but if you're very interested, you can of course check out the link of where to find the ebook, and maybe there'll be some mention about that too. Irina is a very, very talented designer. I know the amount of work that went into producing this collection, and I know that she also, you know, how diligent she was with preparing it, and I just think all the pieces are absolutely beautiful. So I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. I hope that everyone is enjoying the transition into autumn, wherever you are. If you're, of course, in the Southern Hemisphere, you're enjoying the transition to spring. But I hope to be back with you very soon, both with progress and new things to show you. And I just hope that this finds you well. Thank you so much for stopping by. I forgot totally at the beginning to say thank you for coming back, and welcome to new viewers. Thank you for checking me out. Thank you to anybody who subscribes or likes or leaves me a nice little comment on this video. It's really, really appreciated, and I hope that I will be around a bit more frequently. Okay, bye!